Hello and welcome to episode number 70 of GameSack. This time around we're talking about multiplayer games.
Yeah, not the kind that you play on the internet. Those are multiplayer games, but we want to focus on the ones where both of you gotta park your ass in the same room, play on the same console, on the same TV, games way before the internet.
Pre-internet. That's when the best times happened, in my opinion.
Yeah, well, sure.
All right, well, you've got the first game, so...
Of course I do. Let's take a look at... Let's start with Gauntlet 4.
Ooh, yeah.
Gauntlet 4 on the Genesis is obviously a great game to play with friends. The game allows for up to 4 players, but since neither Dave nor myself have more than one lousy friend, well, we're stuck with playing 2-player mode here. But even still, it's way more fun than in the single-player mode, which itself is still pretty good. Basically, you run around shooting the enemies and destroying their generators while trying to get to the next floor. If you don't destroy these generators, more and more enemies will just keep popping out until you do. Your health is constantly depleting, and of course, if you touch a monster or a trap, that makes it deplete even faster, so be sure to grab all of the food you can. This is where it can get a bit tricky, because if there's only one piece of food available and you both need it, well, you might not find yourself so willing to cooperate with your buddy. But in the end, you'll have to work together to get to the higher floors in the arcade mode. This mode is just like Gauntlet 1 despite being called Gauntlet 4. In fact, in Japan, this game is simply called Gauntlet. But this version also has a quest mode with RPG-like elements to help add to the overall package. Here you have to defeat the towers in different locations in an order of your choosing, and there are even shops here to help you power up.
Welcome.
There's also a battle mode, which is a free-for-all. You need to defeat the other players or push them onto an exit. Last one in the room wins. Overall, the graphics are, well, it's Gauntlet, what do you expect? It looks plenty fine for the game, and the amount of enemies on screen is actually pretty impressive without much flicker and very little slowdown. The sound effects are cool. There's a ton of voices in here, but they sound almost kind of like a speak and spell or something. Still, they really do add to the charm. The music is absolutely awesome. Hell, maybe even brilliant. Masaharu Iwata and Hitoshi Sakimoto did an amazing job here. During the arcade mode, it almost seems random which song plays, but usually no matter which song you get, it's pretty good, so you don't have much reason to complain. It's a very foreboding soundtrack that sounds great as you're playing the game, or even when you're not playing the game. Be sure to pick this one up for some great Genesis multiplayer fun.
Don't put your friend on this level.
The King of Dragons on the SNES was released in 1994 and is a port from the arcade. It's another beat-em-up by Capcom that follows their Dungeons & Dragons type games. As with most of the games in this style, there are slight RPG elements in the sense that your character will level up along with their weapon and shield. All this is done automatically so you don't have to worry about it. All you have to do is kill everything in your path. The game is made up of 16 stages which vary in length. Some are really short and will last only a couple of minutes, while the rest are of average length lasting over 5 minutes. Most stages have boss battles at the end, but not all of them. The thing that I like about this game is that it uses actual enemies from the D&D series. The control is very well done, and you only have to worry about 3 buttons: jump, slash, and extra joy, which is your magic. Yep, the button is actually called extra joy. There are probably a lot of really bad jokes I could make about this, but you know what? Every time I pressed it, it really did increase my enjoyment. The music here is a mixed bag. Some of the tunes are really enjoyable with a decent adventurer feel to them, while others are short, not well composed, and just repeat over and over to the point of annoyance. As with all beat-em-up style games, playing with a friend is much more fun than playing alone. I do most of the killing while Joe runs around and collects all the fruits of my labor, and all of the treasure chests too.
Well, come on, why shouldn't I? I'm entitled to it.
I do get a laugh though when he tries to grab a treasure chest that's a mimic. Another great multiplayer game by Capcom that you should experience.
We certainly can't leave out Pocky and Rocky on the Super Nintendo. Basically, this is an overhead run-and-gun shoot-'em-up type game set in ancient Japan. One player controls Pocky, which is the girl, and the other usually controls Rocky, the oversized, filthy, and most likely diseased procyanid. Pocky and Rocky is based on a series called Kiki Kai Kai by Taito. She first appeared in an arcade game, and that was brought home to the PC Engine as you see here. Now, while we don't have time to cover the entire series, it did end up on other systems like the Game Boy Advance, PlayStation 2, and Wii. Anyway, back to the Super Nintendo version. The game is fairly straightforward as you run around blasting your enemies, collecting the occasional weapon or life power-up, and trying to get to the next area, which is easier said than done. In addition to your projectile weapons, you also have a close-range attack as well as the ability to slide out of the way. There's also a giant bomb-like attack that you can do a limited number of times as well. You're gonna need to use all that because this game is no cakewalk. Honestly, it's not much easier even with 2 players than it is with 1. The screen scrolls horizontally and vertically, and the graphics are fantastic. Really, there's a lot of color here and the artwork is great. The music fits the game, but it's got mostly kind of a cutesy-fied ancient Japan kind of thing going on. Probably not something you'll demand on your iPod, but I guess you never know. Then there was Pocky and Rocky 2, also on the Super Nintendo. Now, while this game is kinda cool, they did change a few things. Gone is the slide move, and now you have a magic button. The second player acts more like player 1's helper than an actual participant in the game, so multiplayer here really isn't as much fun, especially since player 2 isn't even always there. It's still a fairly fun game, though.
Big money, big prizes. I'll buy that for $1. These are just a few of the awesome lines you'll hear over and over again while playing Super Smash TV.
I was thinking RoboCop, but okay.
This great game idea is borrowed from the movie The Running Man. You play as contestants in a game show where you must move from room to room destroying waves and waves of enemies who don't want you to win great prizes like a VCR or a toaster. Anyways, once you clear a room of enemies, you're forced to go to the next one and do it again. Certain rooms have multiple X's, which helps increase the replay value. Not that this game needs any help in that area, as it's fun as hell playing every time. Every once in a while, you'll take a break from killing hundreds of drones to fight a boss. The control of this game is great, which is amazing considering the arcade version uses 2 joysticks. You'll definitely want to play this on the SNES since the diamond button configuration really helps mimic the second joystick. It's very responsive and you shouldn't have any problems shooting in the direction you want. It also helps that each room will give you many different types of weapons that will help make staying alive a lot easier. The one-player game is fun, but playing with a friend is really where the enjoyment lies. Just having another player makes the game that much easier, even if that friend is Joe, who likes to hog all the weapons and money and gifts. You can have all the VCRs, Joe, and I'll take the cash and sports cars.
Thanks, I guess.
This is one of the best multiplayer games around, so check it out if you haven't already.
I'd buy that for $1.
Crackdown on the Genesis is a bit more fun than it looks. In fact, you may not think it looks like much at all. Originally an arcade game by Sega, it was released in the US by the mighty marketing forces at Sage's Creation. Basically what you want to do in the game is place a few time bombs throughout the level and then get out of there before it blows up. Fortunately, the enemy was kind enough to spray paint giant red X's right where you need to plant the bombs. Even if you play this game in single player mode, you're forced to a split screen, so you might as well play with 2 players. The top portion of the screen is your map and all of your other vital information you need, like lives remaining as well as ammo. The graphics, well, let's just say you're not going to have any eyeball-gasms here. The music isn't bad though, but regardless of the tiny graphics, the game is still pretty fun. You can lean against a wall to avoid enemy shots, and you also have a bomb which you can use, which blows up a lot of nearby enemies. But the game quickly becomes kind of tough due to the stages themselves. I mean, who builds warehouses like this? This part here with cycling electricity is a huge pain to get across, it's almost impossible. Also, the game has a lot of slowdown in single player mode, but with 2 players, everything is running slow the entire time. Still, despite some of the absurd stage designs and being programmed by 3rd graders, this game can still be pretty fun with a friend.
Alright, Joe, those are some great co-op multiplayer games.
Yeah, of course they were.
So, but you know, I was kind of pissed because you took like 90% of the power-ups in each one of those.
I did not.
Oh, come on, man. You're such a hog. Alright, So, to remedy that, let's play some competitive multiplayer games where I can just kick your ass.
Oh, crap.
Yeah.
Okay, let's take a look at some competitively multiplayer video games.
I'm gonna bring it hot, buddy. North and South on the NES is an authentic reenactment of the American Civil War. It just doesn't get more realistic than this, guys. Actually, it does, but this is still a very fun multiplayer game. You control either the North or the South in their plight to win the Civil War. The game is played out via a map of the Civil War states. Each player has armies that they can move about during their turn. If the player moves to a state occupied by the enemy, a battle sequence happens to determine who gets control of that state. Each player controls an infantry unit, a cavalry unit, and a cannon. You can only control one of these at a time, but you can have all three moving at once if you feel so brave. The object here is to kill every member of the enemy's army. Whoever wins the battle takes control of that state. Armies can gain strength by two means. Firstly, whatever army holds North Carolina will randomly get a ship from Europe with reinforcements. I guess Europe really loves North Carolina. Secondly, if your army is on a state with a railroad depot, you'll earn money when the train rolls through, eventually netting you an army reinforcement. So, it's necessary to have control of North Carolina and as many states as possible with train depots if you plan to win. Another action scene takes place when you try to take a state with a fort on it or a train depot. The army trying to take the fort or the train must reach the flagpole or the train engine without dying too many times, and also must beat the clock to take over the fort and state. So basically, it's just like the Civil War really was. The game can take place over 4 scenarios ranging from the years 1861 to 1864. Each year has opposing enemies set up in different states. Graphically, the game isn't that great. Some of the graphics seem pre-8-bit, but everything is discernible and still enjoyable. The music is good in the sense that it's music from the Civil War era. So, grab a friend in this game and you'll have a good time guaranteed, just like everyone did in the Civil War.
What would a competitive multiplayer discussion be without mention of Super Mario Kart? We can't look at all of them here, but we'll look at the first two. The Super Nintendo version was the first, and while I don't think it ever looked very good, it's still highly fun to play. Anyway, you're definitely better off playing this one with a friend, as even in single player mode you're forced to a split screen view, kind of like Crackdown. You've got a Mode 7 playfield to navigate, and you drive over question mark blocks to collect special items. You can even collect coins for whatever reason, but I've never really been too concerned about those. There's also a battle mode where you go head to head trying to pop each other's balloons. Both the races and the battles can get really heated despite the rather slow and confined nature of the game. Also, you've got to be really careful with the weapons. The green turtle shell scares the hell out of me because almost every time I have it, I find a way to hit myself with it. The graphics aren't anything special, even for their time, and the game required the assistance of a DSP-1 chip. I have no idea why, but the Super Nintendo needs extra help a lot, so I guess I'm not surprised. Once the Nintendo 64 came around, this game took a quantum leap forward with Mario Kart 64. This game plays much more like the modern Mario Karts, which are still being released today. The graphics have been changed to full-on polygons, obviously. I think that change even helped the control. It just seems so much better here. The track design and everything else is very much improved, and this is still one of the best Mario Kart games ever made. The battle mode also returns with crazy new arenas that can make for some really fun fights. Multiplayer is even better. You can play with a buddy, or you can play with 3 buddies for a 4-player match. In fact, when this game was new, I took my Nintendo 64 to the movie theater I worked at as a projectionist at the time and hooked it up to one of the video projectors and played it on a 45-foot screen. We still used film to project movies back then, but we did have lots of video gear laying around for theater rentals and the such, so we definitely took advantage of this after hours. I shot this footage in 1997 when I hooked it up for the managers one night. Great times were had with this one, and you can tell multiplayer is what really drew people into this game. So if you have a Nintendo 64 and at least one friend, you'd be crazy not to have Mario Kart 64.
First there was chess, and everyone liked it. Then came battle chess, and everyone loved it. Now we have Archon on the NES, and it's blowing everybody's mind. Well, it's not blowing everybody's mind, but Archon is a great versus game that is kind of like Battle Chess but doesn't really follow the rules of chess very closely. Actually, the only resemblance to chess is the board and the players. After that, it's pretty much a different game. The object of the game is to destroy your enemy completely or occupy the 5 power points. The game plays out similar to chess, although the character's pieces aren't held to the same movements as chess pieces are. Once you are ready to take a square from the enemy, you place your character on the enemy's character. This puts the game into a full-screen battle mode where each player fights to the death for control of the square. Not all battles are equal though. Some characters are much stronger than others and are almost guaranteed to win. Characters range from pawns who have just a mallet to characters that can shoot projectiles. This adds a lot of strategy to whom you want to attack and with what character. Also, the background of the board goes from light to dark. If a battle takes place on a light background, then the light player will have the advantage over the dark player and vice versa, which is another thought to contemplate before attacking. The control of the character during battle scenes is good, and you won't have anybody to blame but yourself when you die. This game is originally released on gaming PCs and then ported to the NES, which is the only home console that it came out for. I still recommend this game to anybody as it's very enjoyable.
Metal Warriors by Konami for the Super Nintendo is a game where you battle mechs. At first glance, the game may remind you a lot of Target Earth for the Genesis, or maybe even Cybernator for the Super Nintendo, also by Konami. Those games were part of the Assault Suit series, but this game isn't. In fact, it's made by LucasArts. Wow, I honestly would have never have guessed they'd make something like this. It's a good one though. It even has kind of a Blaster Master type thing going on where your pilot can exit the mech and fly around, shoot things, or even get into other mechs. But we're here to talk about the head-to-head mode. After choosing your mechs at first, you may simply be tempted to walk over and start shooting each other until one of you dies. But once you learn the intricacies of the game, you'll want to choose the Scramble mode, which randomly assigns you a mech and a stage. This can get really intense. You might end up with an awful mech that sucks to control, but what you can do is you can hop out of it and find another mech. Be careful though, because if you're not in your mech and the other player finds you, it doesn't take much for him to kill you and win. The game keeps track of your wins and losses, and as you can guess, I'm player 1 and Dave is player 2. That explains the score. The graphics are plenty fine, and the music certainly won't annoy you. Overall, this is a good game with a great head-to-head mode.
Mario Party 2 on the Nintendo 64 is one game in the Mario Party line of games which, as of this episode, has reached its 9th installment, not including the portable versions. I do feel the series has gone on way too long and is long overdue for retirement. That being said, I do think the series is fun and has had some great ideas and some really fun minigames. I picked Mario Party 2 for this review because I really like the atmosphere in this one, and even your characters dress up to match the theme of the board you're playing. So if you haven't played a Mario Party game, then here's the scoop. Each player hits a dice block to determine the amount of spaces they move per turn. Landing on a blue space gives you 3 coins, while landing on a red space takes 3 of your coins. Landing on a green space is an event space, and landing on a Bowser space lets Bowser have his way with you. So after everyone has taken their turn, all players join in a minigame. Depending on what color of space you've landed on will determine if the minigame is a 1 versus 3, a 2 versus 2, or a every man for himself game. The minigames are all short, lasting about a minute, and the winner gets 10 coins. Coins are collected to buy stars, and whoever has the most stars at the end of the game is the winner, making this game easy and fun. Most of the games will test your eye-hand coordination or button mashing skills, but there are a few games in here that are just left up to chance. Mario Party games are genuinely fun multiplayer games, but later versions seem to suffer and don't add much of anything new, as the majority of the games are just rehashed from previous ones. But this one is still worth playing in my opinion.
And there's a handful of multiplayer games for you. Of course, that's not all the multiplayer games in the world. We'll probably come back and visit the subject again sometime in the future, hopefully.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, there's so much to cover out there.
Yeah.
I'm sure you guys are going to let us know what we forgot and what you'd like us to maybe shoot on the next one.
Yeah, so give us suggestions and perhaps we'll consider it. Anyway, thanks for watching GameSack.
See ya.
Hey Dave,
What you playing, Joe?
Well, I was thinking we could play Mercs on the Genesis. You remember how fun that was in the arcade?
I do. We used to kick some major ass in this game in the arcade.
Yeah, so let's play it.
Okay.
Oh, I love Mercs.
Yeah.
Good game.
Let's rock this game.
Come on, you want to join me in this game, man? You are missing an incredible experience
Dude,
here.
I'm hitting start.
This is so fun, man.
I don't think my controller's plugged in. Joe,
Don't you know how to join in a two-player
My
game?
controller's not plugged in. I'm
You're an
telling
idiot.
you.
Oh, look at this. I'm shooting people up. Oh, I wish you could
Dude.
join me, Dave. Why can't you join me?
I'm trying. You idiot. It's a one-player game on the Genesis. Oh my god. You call yourself a Sega fanboy?
Such a good game.
Hey, let's play Final Fight.
On the Sega CD, you betcha.